Welcome to the Bracket Factory and welcome to this latest video, which is all about fitting a fairing to a replica YZR500. Yeah, I know it's all a bit niche, but I was doing it, so I thought I might as well do the video anyway. So here we go. So this is the fairing we're going to fit. It's a YZR500 OWC1 fairing. So it's the one which was on Wayne Rainey's bike in 1980. It's made by AirTech in the States. You can also get them from Harris in the UK. It's made by AirTech. It's fiberglass, and it needs drilling, it needs fettling. It's going to need a lot of work, but this is the one we're going to be fitting. And this is what we're fitting it to. It's a YZR500 replica. It's a sort of very typical build. It's a TZ250 3MA frame. R6 front end, R6 rad, RD500 engine. I think that's a 3XV swing arm, which is a TZR250. So yeah, we're going to fit it to that. Now let's get cracking. So the first thing we're going to do is drill out these. You can see the sort of faint shadow of where the fixings go. There's no drill holes. There's no drilled holes. There's no holes drilled to attach the side panels to the top. So we need to sort that out first and get those all drilled so we can actually line it all up. I've offered the lower to the top and clamped it, and it's important to get this line smooth. So you have to really push it in. I've pre-drilled one side, which is obviously this side, with a small hole, and you can see the shadow of the actual original fixings in the fiberglass. So all I need to do now is drill through there like that, and what I'm going to do is run a 5mm through it. I don't want to go any bigger than 5mm. And now all I'm going to do is just put M5 nut and bolt through there. So that's one side done. Later on I'm going to put proper Zeus fittings on here, but for now that's fine. That gives me enough to offer up. And if you look here, this is the original side fairing mount here, and that is the center of the shadow of the fixing. So we're going to be using that, so I might just drill that now. Right, that's nice, smack bang in the middle of there. Okay, so the other side. So now we've fitted the side panels to the top section, we need to think about fitting it to the actual bike. So over at the bike we need some side fairing brackets, and what I've done is I've made up these posts effectively, and these posts fit in the holes which are already in the side of the frame for the 3MA, Yamaha 3MA. Don't know what these holes are originally for, but as it happens they line up exactly where they need to be for the side fairing. And now, is that a coincidence? I think it probably is. So I'll just fit one of these and show you how they work. Right, now we have the fitting fitted to the side panel, and we're just going to offer it up like that. Now the position of this post and this fitting, it sets the scene for everything. It sets the fore and aft of the fairing. So if you're not using one of these, if you're not using this or the 3MA, you're going to have to work out where forward and aft and up and down it fits. But as it happens, this works out very well. And the general rule of thumb is that when you're fitting it, this level, this part of the fairing, when it's on its axle, when it's on the rear stand, is approximately level, horizontal. So if I fit this up, I know straight away that the inside of this fouls with the radiator. So I'm going to cut mark with a Sharpie and to start cutting out parts of the fairing. So I've marked it with a Sharpie. Don't get too carried away when you do this, because it's easy to cut stuff off, but it's not so easy to actually bond it back on again. Not impossible, but it's not ideal. Weapon of choice is a multi-cutter, so I'm going to cut this now. So there it is, part removed. It's actually just a very nice cut, and it doesn't throw loads of dust into the air, which is quite good because it's not very nice stuff. So we can now offer that back up and see how close that is. So I can now offer this up, and it does slide all the way on, and it misses the radiator. Well, it hits at the bottom, so I might have to take more out there. But the issue we have on these is these side scoops completely foul where the air filters need to go. So we're going to have to sort that out, but we'll get to that. So I think what I'll do now is do the other side. So we've now got the other side on. It's a very similar operation. I'm just doing a cut down the inside. You also have to do a small cut here to clear these pipes. At the moment, at this stage, you're only cutting off as little as possible because there'll be more fettling later. But now we want to offer up the front section. Now you're going to have one of these attached to these lugs here. The height is a complete guess. I didn't make this one. This one came with the bike. It's very unlikely the height's going to be perfect, so we're just going to offer up the nose and see where the end of this fits with respect to the hole in the front of the fairing. So let's do that now. Right, front section has now been offered up, and we can see a couple of things. Firstly, that with the side, this section roughly horizontal, it's actually roughly pointing up. I've got Cat to help me there. Cat. This is too. This pin here is too high, so I'm going to have to make some kind of little drop down bracket to line it all up. But the other thing we can see is that the fairing is being, oh god, bugger off Cat. The fairing needs to have something taken out just here on both sides, so that it kind of pulls in more at the bottom. So a couple of jobs, trim this and make something for that to drop down that pickup point. Right, I've made a very quick and dirty bracket so I can get the dimensions of the actual bracket that I need, but the main thing is that I can move the front fairing up and down here and get it all lined up, and then I can work out where the hole needs to go. So let's do that. So the new bracket is in situ now, and it's lowered the front by about an inch or something. So this is now looking about right. It might have to fall a little bit, but what I will also do while I'm at it is a bit more of a tweak. I'm going to take out this little bit more and bring these sides in a bit more, and I'm going to shorten these stays by 5mm, I think, just to bring it in very slightly. And then when I've done that, we can turn our attention to the bottom section. So a bit more fettling, and I've now trimmed out this for the radiator to fit, and I'm using a Dremel for that. It helps to use it with either a vacuum cleaner or a face mask, because it kicks up a lot of dust. So I've done that. I've also done the other side. There's still potential for it to come in even further, but I'm not going to do that yet. I've also trimmed down, made these side supports a bit shorter. I might still go even shorter yet, I haven't decided. But now we're going to turn our attention to the lower section. Let's go and look at that. Right, here we have the lower section, and I don't even need to try and offer it up to know that it is far too narrow. So the very first thing we're going to do is chop it in half, all the way down the middle, and up through the front, down there. And then we're going to have two halves, and we're going to offer up two halves. Right, now we have two halves. This half should go on quite easily, and this half will give us a bit more of a challenge. So let's do this half first, shall we? Right, this half, as soon as we offer this up, we'll notice that can't even nearly go on, because this duct here fouls with the water pump and the casing itself. So the very first thing we're going to do is chop this duct off, but we're going to chop it off in a way that we can reinstate it at a much shallower angle. So I'm going to draw a line, ignore that, somebody else has done that. I'm going to draw a line much lower down here and retain this curve here on both sides. Keep all of that, but so that we can reinstate the back of the duct, but a much shallower angle. It'll all become apparent. Right, this side is nearly there now. You can see that this duct has been cut out, and if we look on the inside, you can see how close it is. We want to get pretty close to that, but not too close. Tiny bit closer, and then the kickstart comes round like that. It should miss. And if you look inside through here, we can see that we're still binding a bit there. This has got to come inwards a little bit more. It won't quite hit the centre line because I'll need to let in some bits at the bottom. And if we look at that hose there, you can see that I've had to do a bit of a cutout for it. So I think I'll tackle the other side now. So it's now basically on. Both sides are on, and on this side you've got no chunks to cut out. And what you do is you tape the bottom together with masking tape. You can see what the gap is there. It's a good 3 inches wider, and at the back, can't really see. You can at the back, it's even wider, probably 5 inches. So what we're going to do now is we're going to gradually tweak it in. I'll take another 5mm off this. I'll gradually bring it all in as narrow as I can until it starts touching things. On this side you can see down there that hose is touching, but I can scallop that out a bit more. Round on this side, I've only got a little bit of space before the side of the cap touches. I've only got a bit of, well, this is already touching. I can take that out a bit more. So, and also I need to relieve this a bit more because it's touching there. So I'll fettle it all, a few iterations, and I'll have my final position for the underpan, which is what I'll work on next. So once you've got the two sides of the lower fairing as close together as possible, you need to measure the distance front and back of the width and make up a pattern. This is the pattern. Width, so this one was 4 centimeters at the front, 12.5 right at the very back. Make up this pattern, and this pattern is used to make an aluminium plate, which is then used to attach the two sides, and we're going to use it to bond it together. So if we flip it over, you can see the plate is riveted to the bottom. Got these little cutouts to go around these kind of strakes that go back. The front bit is curved round, and obviously what I'm going to do now is I'm going to lay up on the inside of this straight onto there, so my external finish is going to be nice and shiny and smooth. It's a multi-phase process, but we'll get into that. This front bit, I'm not going to actually put something on there until it's all in situ, so I can get the width exactly right. So once you get, I'm going to rivet something in there. So we'll crack on with that, but I think first I'm also going to do some chopping on the side. So this is the lower fairing section, and there's two things you need to do. You need to chop it in half, and you need to let in this piece after carefully measuring how close you can get it. And the other thing you have to do is you have to modify this duct. Normally it sticks out really wide, so I've trimmed it all back, trimmed a chunk out of it, and now it's much closer in, so it doesn't meet, so it doesn't foul on the side cover. and you can see that I've kind of pieced it together with bits of card and tape on the outside. So now I'm going to bond it in on the inside, and then we can dress it from the front afterwards. So we'll do that next. So this side duct has now been bonded from the inside with a very fine mesh, and if we look at it from the outside, you can see it's got 1, 2, 3 seams. Now you can't just fill these seams in with filler, you have to grind them out and tissue them, otherwise they'll only crack when you paint it. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to grind out this with a die grinder, and the middle one and the top one. I'm going to put a thin tissue line, and then I can start thinking about filling it. So now we've ground out these seams, one there, one there, and one there. We're going to use a very fine fiberglass tissue to tissue in these effectively cracks, and then we can rub down, put some filler on, rub down and finish it off. So on the side panel, we're going to have an air filter there. So what I have to do is chop this bit out, and then reinstate this bit higher up. It'll all become clear when it's done. But yeah, first bit, chop that out, and then I've got to make up a plate that goes here so I can make this completely flat. So using the multi-cutter, this bit is removed, and what we're going to do is we're going to reinstate it about there. Yeah, about like that. So we've kept the aperture of the duct, we've got all this nice moulding here. So now we need to make a panel to fiberglass in a flat panel there, and then we can start to re-let this bit in the other side, in the top. So now we've put some aluminium side panels on, and we're going to lay up on the inside onto this plastic surface. Right, I'm now about to lay up this side panel, just mixing up the resin, and I use a ratio of 1 centimetre deep in this pot. It's not that deep, it's got loads of gone off stuff in the bottom, to 2 cc's of hardener. Now that is well over the recommended ratio, but I like it to go off fairly quickly. So let's get cracking. So that's 3 layers of the fine stuff. I'm going to put one pretty heavy gauge section of matting in the middle to make it nice and stiff. These clamps here are clamping a straight edge to it because I don't want it to bend, and I want to lay up this section with it completely straight. Some of these things when they come out of the mould are kind of really warped, so it pays to reinforce it. Right, I'm going to stick another one of these on. You need to make sure that the fiberglass is completely impregnated with resin, so give it a good stipple. This is stippling, by the way. So I'm going to be cutting along there, so I want to make that slightly thicker. Right, that's about it. Need to let it go off now. So the aluminium has been popped off, and I've now got this fill-in panel. So the next bit is to try and fit this piece back in the top to create a sort of seamless, smooth duct. So I'm going to start off by trimming a reference line there, which would be the lower part of the duct, and then modify this piece to fit in the hole. So a bit of trimming later, and this bit has been trimmed down, shortened and let into this top section. We obviously want to try and keep this blend in and this radius in there. It doesn't meet at the top, but but there's a trick we can do about that later. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bond in this bottom bit, and then we can bring this bit in to meet afterwards. So this panel's now bonded in, and I've got, if I flip it over, I've got that lined up quite nicely, and this is level as well. But as it stands, that doesn't match that. So what we're going to do is stick a cut in, we're going to stick a cut in, there, and a cut along there, and make the two meet in the middle. So you can see that Frankenstein's duct has now got a slice out there, so that can bend round. And I took a slice out the top to pull this in, and I put these two little aluminium tabs to hold it together. So I'll lay it all up from behind and then whip these tabs off. So I'm ready to lay up this top duct, and I want to make up this missing piece here. So what I use is cornflakes packet with brown parcel tape on, and then that is just literally taped in place, and like that, and then I can lay up against the back of it, and the fiberglass won't stick to it. So let's lay it up. Right, so Frankenstein's side panel is now complete in that I've got the structure of my top duct. This is blended in quite nicely. I've made it a little bit wider. The two either side on a YZR500 are actually completely different to each other anyway. But now I've done both of them. Now the job is to grind out these seams from the front and tissue, do a tissue infill such that the level of the tissue is just below the finished surface. Then I can have a very small skim of filler to finish it off. So next step is to grind out and tissue. So this is what a tissued panel looks like. I've put a groove in there using a die grinder, and I've tissued inside that groove. So I need to remove all this excess now. So all the excess tissue has now been removed, and I've flatted this off a bit to give it a bit of a key. So it is now time to start putting a very thin skim of filler into these grooves. So this is what the side panels look like when they've been filled and flatted off, and they look smooth and they feel smooth, but it's not until we get a mist coat of filler primer on them then we'll know how smooth they really are, and they won't be as smooth as you think they are. So this has now had a coat of filler primer on it, and it's looking pretty good, but you can see there are imperfections that show up quite nicely. There's a tiny nick just there, one just there. So what you do then is take some 240 grit, then go over it really carefully and pick out all the imperfections and flatten various bits off. But also I'm going to have to do a little bit of filling. I've got a couple of little holes just there. The shadow is not great, is it? You turn around there, a couple of little marks. The prep continues, but fortunately it's at the nice stage now. At the sort of low end stage is the roughneck stage. I'm using this what's it called? This mesh sanding stuff, which is fantastic stuff. But now I'm doing the fine stuff. I'm using this P40 wet and dry. So crack on with this and put some more coats on. So some really fine level finishing now, and it's ready for another coat. So after a bit more filling and priming, you should end up with side panels like this, and you'll see that this one has had an extra tab added. And that is because the on this particular fairing the belly pan section was very, very thin, and we need to have another tab to pull it in. This is the other one. Again, this is actually being fettled to fit around the cooling pipe in the bike. So that's the side panels. The base, the belly, whatever you want to call it, lower section, you'll have to widen it, like this extra section put in the bottom. This bridge connector has been widened obviously, and you can see how the side knacker duct has been reduced in depth, much deeper than that normally. That's what it looks like on the outside. And you might also find that you have to modify your front section. So this is one of the front sections, and you might find that this height here is too low, and you can't get your bars will hit it on full lock no matter what you do. So what you might have to do is this. You can see the aperture has been made wider, and the way that you do that is that you cut along there and around there, bend it up, wedge it open, and then glass it in, and it gives you a much higher aperture so you can actually get your handlebars to turn. So I think let's stick it all on the bike now and see how it looks. So there it is, fitted to the bike. So the key things to look at is the line of the top of the fairing, top of the tank and the top of the seat are all at the same angle, which works well. The selling points about the mods are that we've now got space in here for air filters. Of course we wouldn't have before. Round here, obviously the same space for the air filters. What you also obviously need to make sure that is when you push your kickstop round fully, it doesn't actually hit the fairing. Pretty important. The front, you need to make some fairing stays. The important thing to make sure is that the fairing stays don't hit anything when you're on full lock. So you can see how much room you don't have to kind of, you know, find your way through that gap. Likewise, the other side. I mean, this is made slightly more complicated by the fact that it's got the steering damper on here. What else? Oh yeah, the other thing you need to make sure is when you're on lock to lock, you don't fail anything. You've got space for your clip-ons. These clip-ons could actually go slightly higher up the forks probably. Yeah, obviously needs a lot more work for painting, but in terms of the surgery, that's pretty much it. So that's about it. I hope you liked that. If you did, please hit like. Please do leave a comment if you've got any comments. I try to reply to all comments. If you want to see any more videos about YZR500s, then please hit subscribe. I don't do all that many videos on the YZR500, but I do some. So hit subscribe if you want to see those. But for now, thanks for watching.